1107 on regional radio and myozarksonline.com. It is brought to you by Pepsi Mountain Dew and also by Willard Asphalt. Kevin Stubblefield and Dylan Bates in studio today. We're joined by I-44 Speedway modified driver Brian Brown. Well, Dylan, a weekend off of racing at I-44, so drivers had a chance to get back in the garage, do some things. What'd you do to your car?
I haven't had to do much to mine since I haven't debuted my Big Ten yet, but we might try to get it out this weekend and maybe run Bolivar. And I know Brian's been working hard after his opening night mishap with his motor. But I'm sure there's been plenty of people working hard and ready to get back to the track next weekend.
Still got a few more days because racing will resume at I-44 Speedway the following Saturday. It's going to be the big Ozark Pro late model, another 100-lapper coming up, the Spring Sizzler at I-44 Speedway. That's set for Saturday, the 27th.
That's the Wheel Simple 100,
Yep.
Sponsored by Wheel Simple here in Lebanon.
That is going to be another big race. 100 laps. That's a long race, but that first one on opening night went pretty quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I expected 100 laps to be long and grueling, but I don't know if maybe the cautions counting up until lap 75 maybe made it go quicker for me or what, or I was just so excited and didn't even think about what was going on. It did not feel very long. I wish I had some more time actually, but the way the car was handling there at the end, I was ready to see the checkered flag.
Brian Brown, our special guest, he's a regular on our show here on the Ozarks Racing Roundup. Well, a little misfortune for you on opening night. To kind of detail what happened, Brian.
No, I had all sorts of misfortune. I actually had something happen that I've never had happen in 25, 6, 7 years or whatever racing that a lot of people don't even know about. So we get there at 1 o'clock to practice because I thought we really didn't need to go to practice on Friday night. I thought we'd be pretty good, right out of the box. And boy, was I wrong. Unloaded my car and it was all shined up and ready to go. And thought, well, I'll take it to the scales and see what it weighs compared to our scales at home. And so I fired up and back out of the pits and my pit stall there and drive about 100 feet and turn the wheels to the right and go about another 50 feet. And you can just feel it like bogging itself down, and it just kills the motor right there in the pits, right in front of Cole Williams' trailer. So I'm like, I don't know what happened. So I fire it up. It's still in gear. Fire it up, let the clutch out, just kills itself. I have never seen this done. I've never seen it happen. I've never even heard of it, really, to be honest with you. I had to order a new left rear axle for this rear end in this car, and put it in, clearanced it, didn't have any issues on jack stands on the lift. Somehow, some way, it was not necked down past the splines to the point of it had enough clearance in the actual hub or the actual housing, and it galled itself and welded itself inside the housing, like it locked itself up. I mean, I didn't drive 300 feet. There's no way I drove. Oh, I didn't make it all the way to tech shed from my pit area, so there's no way it was 300 feet. And there I was dead in the water. Which now we didn't know this at the time. I'm thinking I've heard a transmission or a gears went out or something. So Luke pulls the drive shaft out of it, still won't roll. So then we go to take the axles out, and that's when we find that it's it ain't coming out. So we take the hubs off of it, the drive plates off of it, get it pushed back over there. He goes to town, we beat on it for 30 minutes, and we can't get it out. So we're not still sure that it's the axle. We're thinking it's the gears jacked up or whatever. He ended up going to town and getting a 4-foot piece of 1-inch pipe, like solid pipe. And I beat on it for another, there's, I don't know, half a dozen people down there helping. And we beat on it for another half hour, and it finally broke itself loose to where we found out what the problem was. And I had a spare axle, but he took it to a machine shop that he's got access to, turned it down, got it all put back together, and finally got to go out and make about a half of a lap and lost the motor. So just had a insult to injury kind of day, and it was pretty pathetic, a horrible showing for me. I was more embarrassed than I was anything because I put a lot of effort and time into that car, and thought I really had a good piece, and it was pretty embarrassing.
Wow, that makes a guy either think about number one, throwing up the old white flag and surrendering, or becoming more motivated? So there's probably kind of a mixture of both feelings for you, I'd say.
Yeah, I think if I continue to race, I'm just going to start skipping opening night, because that's 3 years in a row now on opening night. I've had a catastrophic failure. I lost a motor three years in a row, 3 opening nights in a row, and went years and never
I remember
had.
last year because I was right behind you in the heat race.
Lost a motor last year, leading in the heat. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what my curse is on the opening night deal here the last little bit, but boy, I've got one going on.
So what have you done this week to try to make repairs?
I got the motor out and got it apart and found the problem. It was fixable. It was a cylinder head issue, and got the cylinder heads back today. And after I go crappie fishing this afternoon, I'm gonna get those put back on tonight and get it all back together. Hopefully, I should have it back together by tomorrow with no issue. And I don't know if we'll go practice it at Bolivar just to kind of shake it down and be sure it's okay. But I'm confident we found the issue. There's no doubt that we found the issue. So,
what steered you back into the modified class this year?
That's kind of a loaded question. I was just kind of tired of it just costs so much money. I mean, it just costs so much money to run a pro late model that people just really don't realize or see, and the time. I'm just down. Luke Hanley's the only person that really helps me, and he's busy, and I'm busy with life and through the week, and it just to do it and do it right. I mean, you really have to be committed, not just on a Friday to get ready for Saturday. I mean, you have to really commit to at least 3 nights a week of at least 3 or 4 hours a night. And I was just getting to the point where it was just kind of getting aggravating and tiring. But the money cost, sponsors are just not as prevalent for me. I mean, they are. It looks like they are for other people, but they're just not for me. And you have to have good sponsors. And I've got a couple good ones, but I mean, it's just too much. It was just too much, and I miss it. Saturday night was hard to watch those guys time in, because I mean, I feel that we would have been plenty competitive with the car I had, but it is what it is. It was just time for a change. It was time. I missed the mods. The mods were great. I really enjoyed the mods. The mods had a good car count when I left them and went to late models.
And when was that? That was kind of a time frame.
Yeah, that would have been, if I'm not mistaken, like 2012 or so.
Yeah, it would have been before 13.
Yeah, it was. I think it was 2012. And I mean, it's kind of ironic how it all goes in cycles. I get a kick out of people talking about how, asphalt's horrible and it's down, and it all just goes in cycles. Mark my word, in a year or 2 or 3 or whatever the year time frame is, pavement will be back on top and king, and dirt will kind of falter. It just all goes in a huge vicious cycle. And classes more so than surfaces do that, due to rules packages, or due to cost, or due to just people wanting to change. But the last year I ran mods, it was just the opposite. We were averaging 14 to 18 mods, and they were only getting about 6, 7, 8 late models. So the car count was just flipped as to what it is now. I was a little bit disappointed Saturday night in the car count of the mods. I have no idea why there was only 6. I thought there was, to the best of my ability, I thought there was somewhere around a dozen or so supposed to be there and be racing.
And I still think there is a dozen, built cars. They just weren't there.
Yeah, and I attribute that to a couple things. I mean, it is early. There's no doubt that the early race hurt that a little bit. I know why they did it, and it was a smart move to do it.
Weather forecast didn't help.
It didn't help. And it's funny, I saw a thing on Facebook a while back that said, had a picture of a car and a guy working on it on jack stands and throwing down, their wrenches laying everywhere, and it said something along the lines of, have had 6 months to prepare for a race we knew about a year ago, and we're now working on it 2 weeks before the season. I mean, and that's just kind of how it works for people. Once again, going back to just jobs and life, and activities and functions and things of that nature. It's hard to get one done.
Yeah, and the fun part's driving them. Fun part's racing them. So
That's
it's hard,
the easy part.
Yeah, so it's hard to get yourself motivated to get that thing ready to go, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What year did you start racing?
92.
Okay.
I believe that's right.
In what class?
Bombers, the bomb squad. That was awesome. I mean, that's what it's got to get back to if it's going to survive, in my opinion. Now, that class don't necessarily exist anymore. It would be more along the lines of Hornets, Chargers, whatever you call them. Every track has their own title, you know. But the Bombers, man, that was where it was at. A $600 claim on the entire car. You could go out there and race for nothing. I mean, we would, Headley's Value Tire would give us free tires, street tires. There was the cost was low, and that was where it was at. There was anywhere from when I started, it was getting really hot. There was about 30, but when I got claimed, I lost 2 cars in 2 weeks. I got them claimed, and when I decided to move up to street stocks, why I think the last night there was 48 cars, and then the week, I believe it was the week after I moved on up, there were so many that they, in the tech shed in the driver's meeting, they said, okay, we're going to do something different. Tonight you're going to race backwards. And they turned them around and went the other way. There were so many. Trying to slow them down, because they were getting good. And yeah, it was just a good time. It was, but racing in general was alive and really rolling everywhere. Not just here, and not just throughout the Midwest. I mean, racing was hot. It was really hot, and yeah, I mean, I would give anything to go back to those days, for sure, for the cost especially.
So, did you move up because of getting 2 cars claimed, or was that just kind of a natural progression?
No, the rule was you could sell your car for $600 to whoever claimed you, and you got to keep your seat and your seat belts and your fire extinguisher. I think that was it. You got to keep your safety equipment, basically. Or you could trade the guy who claimed you. Trade cars right there. But if you denied them, you had to move up. That was the rule. And that was the design for the class. They didn't want people being lifetime bomber drivers. They wanted it to be truly an entry-level division to get people introduced in it. And it worked. There's no doubt. I mean, I can name names of people that started in bombers, raced bombers. I mean, good racers that have went on.
Everybody from that era.
Yeah, absolutely,
really. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's some good wheelmen that came from the bomber class for sure. But that's why, and I never would have thought I never thought I'd ever go to street stocks. And then when I went to street stocks, I thought, well, I'll never go to mods. And then I went to mods, and I never thought I'd go to late models. Now I went to late models. The only class I didn't race in was the late model stock, which is like Big Ten kind of now, but not really. That was the only class I didn't race.
You won a championship in every class you were in, right?
Yep. Yeah, was fortunate enough to drive a baby grand when those came out. The guy that built them in Marshfield was at Bolivar one night and said, hey, would you be interested in driving one of these? And it was me, and it was Ricky Eisenhower and me, and I can't remember. I kind of think Dale Roper Sr. was in one. There's 4 of us, and we had like a grudge race, and it was awesome. I mean, Ricky beat me by that much. I mean, we had a heck of a race. It was a blast.
The first guy to build them is who this was?
Yep. I believe his name is Tom Cravens, I believe was his name. And they were crazy. I mean, they were crazy.
Those blew up from there.
Oh, yeah, they got nuts. Yeah, they got nuts.
That's where Carl Edwards came from, right?
Yep. Yeah. And we had a lot of fun with that, for sure. And then that just opened more doors to move up and get sponsors and things of that nature.
Were you always curious at a young age about driving different types of race cars?
Heck no, I didn't know nothing about race cars. I didn't know nothing about race cars. I've told this story 100 times, and I still to this day, I don't know. It was just by fluke, coincidence deal. I had a buddy that raced out there, and I just kind of hung around him, and we always hung out at their house. just lived a couple houses down, and I painted and lettered his car. And that's how I kind of got around it, was I painted the numbers on his car, and I got to go with him a couple times, and I was fascinated by it and hooked. And
so you weren't necessarily mechanically inclined.
Oh God, I couldn't have told you what a spark plug was. I couldn't. No way. Absolutely.
He was a painter. He was an artist.
Yeah, absolutely no way. I wasn't no Bob Ross or nothing, if that's what you're getting at. But no, I didn't know nothing. And then when we got our cars, the first Bomber I had, I wouldn't have drove that thing down the street and felt safe. It was dangerous. I mean, I don't even know why we raced it. We cut an old cage out of an old car, and me and a buddy welded it in with a stick welder, and you drive it down the road, and I'm kind of telling on the racetrack here, but you pre-tech. You go through tech before. That was a mandatory deal. They'd check your belts and I mean, this cage in this car would shake when you were driving it down the road. I mean, it was not safe. There's no way. But I won races with that car, and yeah, it was just, we drove. I tell you how bad we were. We drove our cars to the racetrack on the outer road from my mom and dad's. We drove them, and we ended up got put to a stop with the highway patrol. They didn't find that too amusing. We were driving home with flashlights out the window.
Oh my!
On the outer road. And we didn't have no trailer. I mean, we were just young, dumb. We didn't have the ability. And then Dale Barker, I'll never forget this. Dale Barker, I bought a car from him, bought from him after I got claimed. He actually had one of those open trailers like you see going up and down the interstate that they can put like 4 cars on. And we would give him like $20 a piece a month, and he would come over and we'd load 4 Bombers on there and take 4 of them to the racetrack. And we did that for about half a season. And then eventually we all kind of started getting trailers and, kind of more into it and more vested, if you will. But, yeah, that's how that all kind of started and played out. And it was a fun time. It was the best time of my life, if you want to know the truth. I mean, it was just... What
was the ultimate goal whenever you first started racing? Where did you see yourself in 20 years with racing?
I didn't even think I mean, I don't. That's a good question, but I didn't have no goal. I didn't have. Yeah, I mean, I was just happy to get to do what I was getting to do. I thought that was really a big deal. And then the more it progressed, and the more probably the street stock deal was probably the big thing for me, because, and a lot of people that weren't there, you probably weren't even born yet at this time. Yeah, you weren't there. A lot of people don't know this day. The street stock class, I'll still put that up against any late model division, any late model group of guys. The street stock class from about 94 to 97-ish, right in through there, that was the best racing, hands down, by far, the best talent pool of drivers. There was about, this is something else I won a bet on here a while back at Bolivar in an argument. There was about 24 different street stocks at Lebanon, 20 to 24 on average, and about 20 to 24 at Bolivar, different cars. The Bolivar guys wouldn't come race Lebanon, and the Lebanon guys wouldn't go race Bolivar. I think me and the Johnsons from Miller and Tim Brown would go to Bolivar every now and then and again, but they didn't race both tracks. The Bolivar guy stayed at Bolivar, and the Lebanon guy stayed at Lebanon. So they had, in essence, if everybody was showed up at the same night, we'd have 48 street stocks. And of the 24 that you raced with every week, there was 10 to 12 that were legitimate winners. I mean, they could drive from 5th or 6th row deep to the front and win. I mean, not a hand me down or a hand it to me on the front row deal, which I'd still win. But I mean, it was tough. And I still say to this day that was the best. And a lot of people don't remember that, but it was for sure, in my opinion, the best.
Well, the next segment we got that Brennan kind of started last week is the good lap, bad lap. So I think we got 3 topics this week. Good lap means you like it. Bad lap means you don't like it.
Okay.
I think the first one he said was, you have the list on your phone? I think he texted us this morning.
Let's see if I didn't look at his text in depth here. So
I know what one of them was, though, and this one will pertain to you. Like the handling of a modified. Is that, like, do you like the way the modified handles more than every other car, or is it just a car you like to drive in general, easy to work on, stuff like that?
You want me to answer like the answer and then say to say good or bad or what?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I have a lot of respect for Dale Roper Sr., and he always told me that if you could race a mod and win in a mod, you could go anywhere in the United States in any class and be competitive. So if you can win in a mod, you can wheel on one, you're going to be good about anywhere. And from what I've found, he's right. The mods are just at their best. When they're their best, they're still a little bit out of control.
Yeah,
they're a little bit sketchy. So to answer your question, I'd say that's good lap. I'd say that's exactly right.
Yeah. The next one was about off weeks.
Off
right?
weeks to get cars ready at I-44.
Yeah. So do you like that or do you not like that?
There would have been a time I would have said, no, we need to race every weekend. But now that I'm older and I realize how much there is involved and people have other kids in sports and things of that nature, I think reluctantly, I think it is good. I think it's a good thing. I think that's what it's going to have to be to make it survive. I just don't – the want to and the desire, it's not that it's not there by people, because I believe it is still, but yet it's not. True hardcore racers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use these guys. Your uncle, your dad, Tim Swearingen, Steve Holt, guys. Tony Jackson's dad. All those guys. We raced on Friday and Saturday night. There wasn't no issue. There wasn't no, hey, what are you guys doing next Saturday night? No, we just going to the racetrack. People knew where we were at. It's a wonder all of our houses weren't robbed all the time, because everybody knew where we was at every Friday and Saturday night. There was no issue. There was no, hey, we're going to Silver Dollar City. No, we didn't. We went to the racetrack, and that's where we were at. But I in today's climate, I say good lap.
Yeah. Well, me being the 19-year-old driver I am, I'm going to say bad lap, because I want to race every weekend. And that's what I did for, the last 10 years racing motocross. I was racing somewhere. So it's so weird for me having these off weekends and, just sitting here twiddling my thumbs thinking about the next time I'm going to be in a race car. So, yeah, for me it's a bad lap, but ask me again in 25 years, and I'd say the same thing Brian said.
Does that help you keep your edge when you're doing it every week?
Well,
driving-wise?
We're doing it every week?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because especially in my situation, only driving for 1 year, I wish that I was in it every weekend. So I need the seat time so I could learn. Going and racing and then sitting, it doesn't give me time to think about it. And I go back, watch GoPro videos, see what I could do different or better. But if I was in the car every week, there's no better way to learn than doing. So, yeah, for me, bad lap. What about you, Kevin?
Oh, I don't know. I kind of like the off time in the schedule, personally, but I think it helps get cars back on the racetrack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
That goes back to the
racing
true racers. I'm not to bash anybody else, but if we're racing every weekend, there's always going to be the guys that if they get something torn up, they're going to do everything they can to fix it in 5 days. Because I know there was times when my uncle and my dad tore stubs off of cars, and had a full new stub or a whole new motor in a car the next night to race it at Lebanon.
Oh yeah. I don't want to say what track it was because I can't really remember. It is up north somewhere, but I saw something they're doing now, and I probably shouldn't even say this because it's going to sound, people are going to say, oh, you're talking about another track. They don't race the month of August, I believe. I believe it's part of, maybe the second week of July. We
tried to do that with July.
They quit.
Yeah.
They quit, and they don't race any in July and August. And then they start back in September, and they go to the snow flies, or they go to the weather gets iffy. And I'm not saying that's the course we need to go, but I tell you what, man, especially getting older, fatter, the whole deal, it's brutal going up there and sitting on those bleachers in 100-degree heat.
It's brutal sitting in a late model.
It is. No, don't get me wrong, it is. But I think as a society we've become so much softer. Everywhere has air conditioning. I remember when a lot of places didn't have air conditioning. A lot of people's houses didn't have air conditioning. So it didn't bother you as much. Man, I'm guilty 100%. When I'm working in the day and I'm ready to get home and get in the air conditioning, when I get in there, I'm done. I'm out. There is no. So I think that's a possible avenue we should maybe attempt, but I'm for the every other weekend, I guess.
Yeah. people went to the racetrack for entertainment back then, and now the entertainment's on their phone. So
don't get me started on that one. That's a whole nother deal.
Well, there are more various methods of entertainment now. I guess you can say there's more things to do in society. So
yeah.
You know, the one thing that really bothers me, and we had this conversation the other day, some of my friends and I, is the thing that really bothers me the most is you just don't see younger kids. I'm not talking about 19. I'm talking about 13, 14, 15 that they're not in the shop with their dad or in the shop with an uncle or a grandpa or whatever, building a bomber, building a street stock, putting a cage in one, putting stickers on themselves. I mean, they're getting on the internet on Racing Junk, and they're getting on Facebook websites to find race cars, and they're buying turnkey late models. They're not they're doing these kids such an injustice, in my opinion, to like the 100th degree. Start them in a car that doesn't handle. Start them in a car that doesn't turn. Make them understand what it's like to have to use the brake pedal. You know, I hate to say anybody can get in a late model and run a late model, because that would be doing a disservice to the guys that race them. That would say, okay, Brian Brown, you're horrible. You're not that good then, because you're saying that anybody can race a late model. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, though, those are purpose-built race cars. Start these kids in something that is not purpose-built. A street stock, a bomber, a Charger, a Hornet, a mod. I mean, they are a purpose-built race car, but my gosh, you talk about the humility factor. A mod it will drive you to drinking faster than anything, if you're out to lunch. And I think that's a disconnect, and I think we've got to find a way and get back to that. And whether that's each track have a committee that says, yeah, we'll let your 14-year-old run a late model. We'll allow that. Well, there is no such thing now. They just show up, you race it. You're one of the guys.
12-year-olds run late model.
And I don't think that's necessarily. I'm not saying it's disrespectful to the other competitors, but it kind of is. I think there should be a committee. I think if I remember right, and I could be wrong, and I hate to even say this, but it was in the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s. You didn't just get to race in a mod. I mean, you had to have something, a little bit of a resume, a little bit of background. I mean, they didn't just let anybody get in a late model. They didn't let anybody just get in a mod. I mean, they kind of self-police that themselves. Mm-hmm. And I'm not so sure that's not the avenue that we need to kind of get back to. But that's a whole nother topic as well.
With the disappearance, of metric cars and stuff like that, street stock's going away. Do you think that the Big Ten late model can be seen as an entry-level class for some guys?
I could have.
Yeah. Maybe
not now. Yeah. Just because I think that got a little out of hand, or a lot out of hand, if you will. But what class do you determine that's going to be the case? Heck, I'd be going against what I just said a minute ago. Bombers don't exist. Those cars are hard to find. Those cars are cash for clunkers eliminated all that. Them cars are gone. Them big cars, metric cars are getting to be hard to come by. They're still out there though. People don't want to race. I do kind of get a little aggravated when I hear people say, "Well, those cars aren't out there." Yeah, they are. They're out there. You can find them. They're still sitting around. If you want to race bad enough, and that's the car you got to run, then you can still find them. I see them all day driving up and down the road. So that is a little bit of an excuse, but yeah, I think in the end it really needs to get back to an entry level, get your feet wet, prove it. I'll give you an example. Saturday night, I'm guilty of it. I was on the pole. I drew number one out of the bag.
Can't get any higher than that.
Can't get no better than that. I realized I had an issue. I knew I had a problem. I wasn't about to put myself or any of the competitors, any other 5 competitors that were there, in jeopardy. I respect people's equipment too much. I know how hard people work on their stuff and how much it costs to put myself on the pole and be a problem in the way. And I wasn't going to do it. So I went tailback on my behalf on purpose.
Drove one lap
and pulled off. Because that's the right way to do it. But you see so many people at all these racetracks I've been to and have been fortunate enough to go to, they don't care. They don't care if they cause a wreck. They don't care if they're going to be a lap down. And that is so backwards to me. I personally, if I was a track owner or promoter or manager or whatever, I would go to that guy's pit right then, right there when he come off the track. I'd tell him to load it up, and I'd tell him not to come back for 2 weeks or a month until they learn. And I think we've got out of the we're too politically correct. We're scared to make anyone a little bit upset, and I get that. Our car count's not the best. We got to have every car we can get. I get that too, but I think there's something to be said for that. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes Larry Phillips told me this a long time ago. Sometimes you got to slow down and go faster, and I think that's kind of a good motto to go by.
Ozarks Racing Roundup. We're rolling along. 23 before 12 o'clock. Back with more in just a moment on KJL.
Yeah, I saw that, Rob. That was pretty cool.
That was cool. I
Goes
think
William Gardner.
I think that's a neat deal. I don't know if you knew that, Kevin, but did you see where the Lebanon is it LTCC?
I don't know what it is.
Class? They put a cage in a bomber.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And they documented they had 8 or 9 kids welding on it or working on it. I think schools need to get involved. I think guys need to go from the racetrack. I think guys need to go to the schools and knock on the door and say, hey, what can we do to get a half dozen of your students if they're interested? Now, we don't want to make them.
Right.
We want them to want to do it.
Right.
But we'll couple them with...
See, I tried to do something like that in one of my ag classes, in the shop class, and it kind of got shut down because of the liability that so that's, I don't know, that's something to think about.
Yeah, that's aggravating.
Yeah.
Because that's
we weren't even allowed
I know
to,
it's true, but
we weren't even allowed to change our own oil. And I knew the teacher well enough that I could come down there after school and do it, but we weren't allowed to change our own oil in the shop, during class, during school hours with their tools.
Yeah, I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
We were allowed to learn how to change oil, but when it came to our own stuff, they didn't want it. They didn't want to be a part of that. But there was things I worked on. I rebuilt my parents' tiller and stuff like that. But it was cars and stuff. They didn't want a part of that. Tractors. He said 2 kids is all that did it. They built the whole cage. William Gardner and Brian White.
Oh, that's Rob's. I believe that's Rob's son. Yep.
And William Gardner won the Hornet class at I-44 last year.
Oh, yeah. I now realize who
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And he won Midway Championship. Or his brother did. One of the two.
I'll bet you're right. If you had some drivers as recruiters for that, you might get some interest.
So, because I don't know what kid wouldn't kind of think. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
20 minutes before 12 o'clock. Thanks for joining us for the Ozarks Racing Roundup. It is brought to you by Willard Asphalt and by Pepsi Mountain Dew. Dylan, I think we had more good lap, bad lap question, didn't we?
Yeah, I'm going to add one, though,
Okay.
real quick. Talking about, viewership and phones. Good lap, bad lap. The amount of accessibility you have to watch a live race on your cell phone or computer or TV compared to being there in person.
Bad, and worse, and bad, and bad. I can give you one word, Bristol. I can give you one word, St. Louis Cardinals. I can give you, we can go on and on and on. It's so, the market is so saturated now that you can stay home in your living room, on your couch, on your lazy boy, fire up the grill, go out at a caution. You don't have to spend the money for the ticket. You can stay right at home. Kevin, you and I have known each other for years. There is no bigger Cardinals fan than me. I love them. I watch I think we probably on average watch 140 games. We don't miss them. If we miss them, they're on the radio. It's just you've got to get. I know why they're doing it, because they want the money. They want it to be exposed. I get that, but it's once again, it goes right back to the word disconnect. There's a disconnect there. You can watch it on TV. If you don't get there and smell 110 burning and smell a Hoosier tire getting hot and see a guy throwing his helmet, that's where it's at. That's how you get people intrigued, and you miss that on TV. You just flat out miss it, and I'll argue that till I'm done.
See, last year I would have said good lap, but it wasn't until a couple weeks ago, probably Bristol, same deal, when I noticed. I was like, man, that really is taking a toll. But it's not hurting, series like NASCAR. That more power to them is what NASCAR says. They want the TV sales and all that, because I'm pretty sure the viewership for Bristol was through the roof from what I saw. But it's places like Lebanon that hurts, because it gets them disconnected. And the fans aren't coming to watch it when they can just watch it on their phones. But I think we do a good job at kind of keeping that away. We don't really have the whole race live. We don't sit there and film the whole race live so everybody can see it. So they come out and watch the race, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, it's bad lap for every other series that's doing that.
I'd rather watch something live in person. Fail that, I'd rather be home, watching on the big screen. As a last resort, on the phone. I just kind of stair steps it.
Yeah,
for me.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. I mean, I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
I certainly am. I got a kick out of, and I'm going to go against Dylan and I joked about this the other day and laughed about it a little bit. I'm going to go against what I kind of commented to him about. I just can't do NASCAR anymore. I just can't do it. I can't watch it. It makes me want to vomit every time I sit down and turn it on, because it's this guy whining that this guy passed him, and I mean, they're racing, for the love of God. That's the point. You're supposed to get past.
Can't tell if I'm sitting next to Clint Boyer or Brian Brown right now.
No, I mean, I just don't. I just think it's just asinine the way they go on and the way they do and the way they talk. But after Bristol, I saw where all these people were making comments about it, and it was Bob Pockerass and somebody else were kind of actually dishing it out to people. I mean, kind of Bob Dillner. Bob Dillner is one of them, and he was just hammering on people. And here's the disconnect again. Let's say you and I decide to go to Bristol, to leave from Lebanon, Missouri today, and we drive out there in the fuel and we get a ticket, which used to be you didn't get a ticket, but let's just say you get a ticket. You can get a ticket now, no problem, $50 a piece. So $100 for the tickets. Probably, if I was guessing, probably still 30 or so to park a day. So you're at least another 60 in. There's 160. Hotel rooms in Bristol are in the $350 range a night.
For a weekend.
For a night for the weekend.
Just for that one weekend out of the year.
That same Super 8's $49.95 on Monday.
Yeah.
But she's $350. So let's say you just stay 2 nights. That's $700. Now you're at $860 if I'm doing the math right. That's no food.
Yeah.
At bottled water at $7 a bottle. Cokes at $10. Hot dogs at $12.50. The disconnect is the common guy, the common fan, cannot take his family to that Bristol race no more. They can't go to that. They have priced themselves way out of the market. Way out of the market. So people can sit at home and watch it on Fox and listen to Darrell Waltrip clamor on with his cane and bump his gums and whatever and mute it. But it's just that in essence is one of many problems I think they have. But that's a whole. We could go on another hour for that and still not scratch the surface.
For me, if I tune in at the right time and see the final stage, I'm good. And that's what I did last Sunday. That final stage was good.
And it was a barn burner. Exactly.
That's another good lap.
That's the good lap question. Next one. Yeah. I'm gonna say the race was a good lap, but what was going on the track, I gotta say bad lap, because Boyer ran down the leader from 3 or 4 seconds, I think, or something like that. He ran him down, but gets to him. And, he gets within a quarter of a second, and then you can just see the air make him so tight that he couldn't even get anywhere around him. He couldn't pass him. He couldn't do anything with him once he got there.
Almost like a restrictor plate race, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's where things have got to change with the Cup cars. They've got to get them off the ground, and they've got to do something there to make the cars racy, like late models are. I mean, we can pass. We can door bang and stuff like that, and we can put on a good show. But then those guys, they got to work on something there for sure.
I don't know, am I right or wrong? Martin Truex drove a victorious race with kind of defensive driving.
That was the best defensive performance I think I've ever seen, especially knowing who was behind him after Martinsville last year with Logano, on the last lap. Logano very easily could have moved him out of the way again, but I think Logano had a little respect and said it's early in the season and it doesn't need to be done. And Truex picked up his first short track win. So I think that's a good lap as well. I don't know if you watched any of it.
Notice I'm silent. I didn't watch any of it because I just don't. I just don't. Man, I tell you what, I don't get it. I don't like it. I don't. It's like if my wife asked me to go to the opera, and I said no, and then so she asked me on Tuesday, "Hey, want to go to the opera?" My answer's still going to be no. And she can ask me on Wednesday, and guess what? My answer's still going to be no. Until they get it fixed, until they listen, until they stop with the way they're going, it's going to continue down a bad road. It's going to continue to have empty seats. The racing is going to suffer from it. I don't know if you guys saw the Tony Stewart comments about the state of NASCAR. It was a great read if you didn't. He basically, in essence, I'll sum up his hour-long interview in a two-sentence deal. He said, I want you to think about this and be honest about it. How can you ask a 40 to 60-year-old male or female demographic, that's your number one demographic target audience, 40 to 60-year-old men and or women, how can you ask them for their heroes to be 16-year-old kids who have never won in any series or never won any track championships at I-44 Speedway, at Bolivar, at Hickory, at these places? How can you ask these 40 to 60-year-old grown men and women for them to idolize 16-year-old kids who can't even open up a Bud Light after it's over and drink it? That is a whole other.
I think they're definitely learning, not to bash guys like William Byron and Alex Bowman, but they're yet to perform, and it's been 2 or 3 years. I think they're starting to learn that they can't go that route. So,
yeah, there is. I've said this forever, and I'll say it again. There is so much talent rich in the last 20 years, 8 miles right out here at I-44 that have, I mean, I'm not going to name names. People have been that there is more talent there with I'm not saying everyone, I'm saying a couple in each class or whatever than's racing on Sunday. I assure you of that. And you can go to a lot of these CR races or JX Series races or pass races or Cars Tour races that it sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, you can see it a mile away. These guys renting these rides from Kyle Busch they're lights out fast in qualifying. I mean, when the money shows, they're lights out. When it comes to racing, they run over the guy on lap 3 because they didn't see the caution come out. Yeah. I mean, just horrible in the skill set aspect of it. And I always said also that one of the best races ever would be take some of the late model guys, and this was years ago, so no late model guys get hammering on me on the internet here, but take some of the late model guys and put them in bombers and have a 20-lap race, and take a few of them bomber guys, select your few, and take some of them bomber guys and put them in late models and have a 20-lap race, and I guarantee you'd have 2 good races. So I still say that the NASCAR's broken, not broke financially, broken, and until they start listening to some of the people that do it and have been doing it and are vested, until the dollars stop rolling in, and these guys are buying these rides. I saw a deal the other day. A guy honestly didn't believe that you had to pay to race, and people still believe that you get a ride because you're good. Oh, no. For those of you listening, if you believe that, I have some land I'd like to sell you that has water under the Golden Gate Bridge in Missouri. Please call me, and I'll sell it to you. But it is what it is.
Well, maybe that'll again cycle back to an advantage to grassroots short track racing.
Well, look what they're doing. I mean, they're trying to get to Nashville. They're trying to get a NASCAR race in Nashville. Yeah. Look at their number 1 race last year. Do you know what it was, just out of curiosity? You tell me. The Darlington Throwback Paint Scheme race. Wonder why that is. They're going back to when they were hot. I mean, they're going back to those paint schemes. They're going back to that throwback, which, now I will give you one thing. That's the coolest race I've seen in a long while, the way they all dress up with their 70s clothes and their afro wigs and stuff. I think that's just awesome. But it was really marketable then. People could relate. And, okay, I've spoke my piece on all that. I'll quit.
Yeah, I agree with what Riley Sharp just said on our Facebook Live. He said you can't compare short track racing here, or anywhere for that matter, short track late model racing or short track modified racing. You can't compare it with NASCAR right now. I think short track racing is doing really good, and that's where everybody should be focusing.
Oh, yeah. I think if you could do it, and I don't know how you'd do it because of the money and the aspects, the logistics, the marketing, the radio, the internet media, all that crap. Yeah, I think that if you could take Fox, a nationally or any network, any nationally broadcasted network, and go to a North-South 100, the Rattler, Snowball Derby,
Oxford 250.
Oxford 250, Oktoberfest at La Crosse. I honestly believe if you would handpick half a dozen of those races, and I'm not just talking about pro late models and super late models, I'm talking about their mods and their street stocks. Those guys throw down. It's some of the best racing you'll see ever.
They had tour mods in South Boston on NBC actually the other day, and it was a great race. And I heard that the ratings were through the roof for that race.
They had the icebreaker, it was either the icebreaker or the New Year's bash deal at oh crud! It was a street stock race, 100-lap street stock race on New Year's Day at night on NBCSN the other day. I read somewhere after I watched it, which it was an awesome race, by the way. I saw where that was the number 2 rated watched program that entire day that they first aired it.
It's the novelty aspect of that. Why is the truck race at Eldora so popular?
I went to that last year.
I mean, one, you're in a fan-rich zone. Like, okay, go to your question. I didn't think about this a while ago when I was clamoring on. So for you and I to go to Bristol, I mean, we're gonna have to load up and drive. Eldora is in the hotbed of racing country. We don't have. I mean, if you and I are gonna go watch any race, the closest race is Kansas. So we're still a 3-hour drive. They're not. They're a 10-minute drive. I mean, they've got 5 or 6 tracks within the Eldora circle there that are all within an hour. And their tracks are they're rich. They're getting hammered every week with attendance.
Yeah, Dylan went last year. I always make it a point to watch that race.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, here's how I went too, and this is what people aren't doing. My buddy that just joined, Dalton Cloyd, me and him decided like a week before we were going to go to this race. I bought tickets online for $30 or something like that. I drove up there with no hotel room. I had no idea where I was going to go after the race. I was going up there to watch the race. I went there, I watched the race, and left, 11 o'clock that night. And I thought I was going to drive home, and I ended up, crashing at a hotel that we got on the way back in Indianapolis, I think. But no one has that, the drive to just take off and go watch a race.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I mean, which there's a lot of varying factors in that, kids and work schedules and things of that nature. But
yeah,
but they kind of are really set up for a huge success there, just because of their market is so race rich. It's so, I mean, people are still in the old adage of what we're doing on Saturday night. We're not going to play bingo. We're going to the races.
Yeah, if that track was paved, it still wouldn't change. Just the way that track is.
Yes, I
even if
agree
that track was asphalt, it would still be packed like that for that race.
I agree to that for sure.
Yeah.
Guys, out of time. Been a good show. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks for having me. Let me air my grievances and stuff.
You're always welcome, Brian Brown, our special guest this morning.
Come watch them race.
Yeah, come out and see us, guys. Come on out.
Yep. April 27th, Saturday night at I-44 Speedway. That will feature the Wheel Simple 100. So we'll be back to preview that next week and have more racing talk here on the Ozarks Racing Roundup. Brought to you by Pepsi Mountain Dew and by Willard Asphalt. Thanks for joining us here on Regional Radio KJL.
Good show, guys.